Think about this. It's Monday morning, you need to make some cold calls, but you know what? It feels so much better to go work on your calendar or perhaps to update the CRM. Maybe you need to, if you're working from home, do laundry. The issue is that you have call reluctance, you have some fear, you have a blockage, you probably have some past trauma. And that precisely goes back to the notion that your brain is the real issue behind what you're doing. Well, not necessarily your brain, it's what you're thinking. And on today's episode, we're going to break down just that, like give you precisely why you do not want to prospect right now and how you can go about fixing that. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, I have a fantastic guest. Her name is Dr. Jean Oursler. And I want you to connect with her. I have her information down below. You can check some of the details there because she is not only does she understand sales, not only does she understand business, one of the things I like about her is her Ph.D. in business psychology. I mean, there's a lot to like about Doc, but you know, the simple fact though, she knows where she's coming from when it comes back to the idea of the neuroscience. She has a system and a process and a whole philosophy goes back to the caveman brain and how usually some of the issues that we face in life, whether in sales or in business or just in our relationship, ties back or stem to the caveman brain. She's going to break down the psychology behind this. I know you're going to find it interesting. If this is your first time listening to one of our podcasts or watching any of our videos, I ask you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, no tricks, no gimmicks, but what happens is that we will notify you every time we have a new piece of content. And listen, we produce 2 episodes per week, and I would love for you to get a chance to dissect those episodes and to listen to them to see how they can help you in your sales career. As we dive into this episode, listen to Dr. Jean. Get a chance to understand her a little bit as I help peel back the onion, so to speak, so you can get an understanding of why I feel that she's such a great guest. And as we dive into the principles, see how this could apply to you and to your sales efforts. Let's jump in. Dr. Jean, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me today, Donald. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much.
I am really looking forward to this. Can't wait to pick your brain and gain some more insights on this topic. But before we dive in, I bragged about you a little bit there. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
So we own a sales training company that we work with all types of sales organizations to help them improve, or I guess it's really more increase their new business development specifically using something what we call the Caveman Brain system. And that's something that I developed when I was in my own sort of sales slump. And I learned that what was preventing me from moving forward was what was between my ears, which was my brain, and specifically my amygdala, which is the almond-sized shape of your brain, the back of your head. It's from caveman days, and it's your internal protection system. Think, fight, flight, or freeze. So I called it Caveman Brain. I learned how to harness that inner voice inside of me. And then we started teaching all of our clients. And now we are looking to spread the word to everyone to learn about Caveman Brain so that they can harness it for themselves and for their teams and be able to move forward to increase their new business development.
So we'll link back to that in our show notes because there's a whole bunch in there that we can unpack.
Okay.
But I want to just talk about the idea behind this, though, when it comes to the caveman brain and your experience. So go back into what happened there. Tell us what was going on.
So I was looking to grow my company and I couldn't seem to figure out why I had hit this wall that was preventing me from being more successful in new business development. So I hired, after looking for the silver bullet, like I went to every webinar and I read every single book, and I had an accountability partner and I had a mastermind group, and I asked my mom, I asked my friends, like, what's wrong with me that I can't seem to do better in selling stuff that for my company. And so finally I decided to hire 4 coaches because I figured at this point I tried everything else. And one of those coaches happened to be a Harvard neuroscientist. And what I learned from the Harvard neuroscientist is that we have this thing called our amygdala, which is, as I said, an almond-shaped point back in our head. It's in our internal protection system. Think, fight, flight, or freeze. And from that internal protection system, it was telling me things that was preventing me from moving forward and being more successful. So it was actually protecting me, telling me stories that really weren't truth, but I was believing them to be truth, and therefore I wouldn't move forward. And I
Can you give me some more examples of those?
yeah, sure. Like, so we talked about this a little before we got on the show this morning is, for example, my son once asked my mom, what do I do for a living? And without hesitation, he was 4. She says, Mommy talks to strangers. Now think about that. We
Mhm.
learn things from our childhood, from our parents, from our culture, and from our life experiences. When were we told not to speak to strangers? Like, why is it so? It's so funny because I was having this conversation with a colleague yesterday. He said, we all have this call resistance because we don't want to pick up the phone and call people because we think we're interrupting them. He said to me, I've worked in my office all week last week. No one called me. No one interrupted
Mhm.
me. I would have been happy to have someone to interrupt me. But we think as salespeople, gosh, I can't call them because I'm going to interrupt them. So why would I do that? Uh, what is that from, right? Where does that come from? Why is that thought? Why is it so hard for us to feel like we're going to be pushy, salesy, or aggressive, or we have fear of rejection? When we make up these stories about what we think the other person's going to say or do, and then we act on those stories, but those stories really aren't truth. They're just things that our caveman brain made up to keep us protected and not to get hurt in any way. And caveman brain is only there to make sure that you don't die. I don't know anybody in sales who has died from either talking to a stranger, right? Or or asking for the business, or thinking that they were pushy, salesy, and aggressive when really they weren't. I mean, no one's killing you off for being pushy, salesy, and aggressive. They may not work with you, but I have yet to meet someone that we've worked with that was truly pushy, salesy, and aggressive. But that's the biggest fear that people have. So,
So it's there to protect us.
mhm.
However, that protection is not necessarily needed as much these days, because talking to a random stranger, maybe 10,000 years ago probably could kill you, um,
Yeah,
if you're in a caveman era, because that person may want what you have.
yeah,
But nowadays, that's not the case.
correct.
How do I turn it off, Dr. Jean?
So you actually can't. And we tell this story because in caveman days, our brains only know what we see and what it hears. That's all it knows.
Yeah.
And our caveman brains are scanning the horizon looking for danger. So even as we're sitting here talking, it's scanning the horizon, making sure that you're not going to do anything to harm me, because caveman brain is only there to protect us from dying. So we were cave people and we heard the rustling of the bushes and we saw the bushes rustling. We thought, oh my gosh, that's a saber-tooth tiger. And then our brain would automatically flood our body with chemicals that would make us fight, flight, or freeze. And the only way I can describe those chemicals is like when you're in an almost car accident, which is the car accident has actually happened, then all of a sudden afterwards you feel like really jittery. Those are all the chemicals that our brains automatically uh, send to our body to protect us. So, like now that there's no saber-tooth tigers to make sure that we don't get hurt, what does a caveman brain do? It has to find something to protect you. It's got to have some stories. So, what it does is that it thinks about what is it that could harm you in today's society. Well, we've done a survey of our clients. Fear of rejection is huge. Well, I always say
Mhm.
to people, did you get rejected from some college? Because I did, right? Fear of losing money. I don't know. Have you lost money and you're still here? Uh, right? Being pushy, salesy, and aggressive. Well, have you ever been pushy and salesy? And did someone like shoot you, or did they kill you off? The need to be liked. Well, did you ever have a person who didn't like you? Imposter syndrome. Like I always think, well, fake it. Did you ever fake it till you made it? Right? Because these are all things that the people that are in our sales program tell us. The fear of losing status or reputation. Well, did you ever lose status or reputation? So if you understand your own caveman brain and the fears that you have, when you start to talk to people across the table, your potential clients, as we call them, your prospects, they've got fears too. And you've got to be able to manage those fears so that you get them across the line to say yes. We call that a facilitator buyer. So that's why the caveman brain system really does elevate you from a skills and knowledge point of view, because you're now starting to learn about who you are and how you like to sell. And then how do you get the people across the table to say yes to you? And if you're a sales manager, knowing all of this about what we call the people in your stable, Like, do you have a zebra,
Mhm.
a horse, a lion? You got to know your different personalities because not everything fits one person.
So I'm hearing this from understanding from now from the sales manager standpoint or as a sales rep standpoint. What do I do? What's the step to be able to harness the caveman brain since I can't shut it off?
Yeah, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to talk to it. So one of the things is, remember, it only knows what it sees and what it hears. So what are you telling it? What are you reading? And what's really interesting is that we have these neurological pathways in our brains that we can actually either start a new one or shut down an old one. And if you start to build, if you just say to yourself something different, so like for example, I'll never be pushy, salesy, aggressive. Like I'm a fabulous salesperson. I love talking to people. People are never feel interrupted when I call them. When you start to say those things to yourself, your brain believes it because it only knows what it sees and what it hears. So you have to really think about what you're feeding it, and you also have to think about where are these fears coming from, your parents, your childhood, your culture, your life experiences. Where do they come from? And then you have to tackle them and say, are those really truth to the things that I'm doing today? Or are those things that someone gave me that I really don't need to be holding on to anymore? And I think that if you understand all of those things, then obviously you have to have the right messages, you have to have the right target audience, you have to have the right message, you have to have the right accountability, but you also have the right mindset to be able to go out and get new business development. And nowadays, coming out of where we are in our environment, lots of people want to connect, and it's a great time to start connecting with people. We're all a little bit rusty at it because we haven't been doing it, so that might be a little fearfulness of like, what am I going to say to them and what will they say back to me? Well, they're here to help us as much as we're there to help them. So if you think about helping first, how could I help them? Rather than, I just got to close the business.
Mm. So just a lot of it is changing the mindset. We can't really surgically take out the caveman side.
You can
But
minimize it,
what
but
I'm
you
getting
can't delete it.
minimize. It's like too many windows.
Yeah,
Clear one of
right,
that one.
exactly.
Um, I like that affirmation piece, so to speak, or that positive self-talk. Now, that scientifically makes sense to me when you put that there because you hear like say good stuff about yourself, but when you put it in context with this idea of how it's going to help me to overcome my caveman brain way of thinking, it makes sense now, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of things we do in new business development, whether we've been doing it for 5 months, 5 years, 15 years, there's always something that we can do to improve. There's something that's always holding us back. And what is that from being more successful? And once you know what that is and unlock it, then you're going to be able to increase by fourfold, fivefold, tenfold, whatever it might be. Now, some people have got this down. Look, I get that. But there are a lot of people who
Mhm.
don't. And the majority of people who need to get it down will see great results once they realize how to harness the caveman brain.
Love it. What are some things that you say to yourself when it comes to the affirmation standpoint, or go back to when you discovered this? What would you tell yourself on a day-to-day
Well,
basis?
I actually wrote down at 39 things that I had to say to myself. I said them 3 times a day. I said them in the morning, I
Oh
said them
wow.
at lunchtime, and I said them in the evening. So one of the things I used to say is I was a terrible writer. Now, writing is important in new business development. From a marketing point of view, we have to write blogs or we write emails, right? Or we write proposals. And I would say I was a terrible writer. And I thought for the longest time I was a terrible writer till one day I was talking to my college roommate, and she said, I said to her, oh, she said, you need to write a book. And I was like, I can't, I'm a terrible writer. Because writing a book is really important in new business development too. And she was like, oh, no, I think you're a great writer. I love reading what you have to say. She said, you just are terrible at grammar and spelling. You need a really good editor. I was like, wait, what? So I decided to put on my affirmation where I'm a great writer and people love reading what I write. So I hired a really good editor, and I, for 45 days, said that to myself. I've now written 6 books and I'm working on
Wow.
2 more. And the idea is that I'm a really good writer, and I'm okay with saying that. Um, Another thing is something I learned about, you have to toot your own horn. Like, you have to be able to say what you're good at, and it's not bragging. if you truly believe it's a fact, like I'm a good writer, I'm a great speaker, I'm really good at closing business, I'm really good at making friends and solving problems. So those are all the things that I say to myself on a regular basis when I'm working towards new business development. Like, I'm going to make a friend today and I'm going to help someone solve a problem. Who should I talk to first? And off I go. And I think to myself, I'm really just finding a friend. I'm really solving a problem. And they're going to pay me money to do that. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. And it's very simplistic. And some people who are seasoned salespeople are like, oh, really, Jane? But the fact is that there's something that's always holding you back. And if you can identify what that is and then minimize it, it opens up so many doors. So,
Oh, I love this. This is so good. And the idea of tooting your own horn, as soon as you said that, I started thinking like, am I going to be too conceited? And I think that's going back to the caveman brain, that somebody told me that you can't say that.
yeah. Yeah. Notice when I said that and you were like, I'm going to be too conceited. Well, then you're not going to be able to say all the wonderful things about why people would want to work with you if you're afraid you're going to come across as too conceited. And Donald, I don't think you're conceited at all. I mean, I'll tell you that right now. I don't see that. But notice how I said something and immediately something jumped into your brain.
Yep.
That's what happens with caveman brain. And then that's why it prevents us from being really great salespeople, because we've got these stories that are in our head, or the things that caveman brain comes up immediately with. And the worst part about it is that it's often in the subconscious. Like, brave for you for saying that. Congratulations. But most of us don't speak those words out loud. So we can't eliminate them. And I imagine if I went to all your friends and family during your clients and said, is Donald really conceited? They'd be like, are you kidding me? No way. But imagine if you took that to heart and then said, you know what? I can't say that. That's silly. And then you wouldn't.
I want to go back to this, and I thank you for that. I like that, by the way. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Great example. Thanks for playing our game today.
I had to. It's like perfect scenario.
Yeah, I hear you.
Go back to one you talked about, what the sales leader knowing who's in the stable. How understanding these principles can help me as a leader lead my team.
Yeah, so I was just on this call before I came on with you. We were working with a law firm, and the managing partner was like, why is this person not bringing in any business? And I was like, well, your compensation structure is preventing him from moving forward, because in his mind, he believes that he will make less money giving away more business than he will if he keeps it himself. And right now, that may or may not be truth. I don't know the compensation structure, but I brought that up to the managing partner. So now I can understand the compensation structure so that I can either say, yes, the compensation structure needs to change, or no, the salesperson now, or the lawyer who is going out and originating new business, doesn't understand and now has put some sort of barrier to going out and getting more business. So understanding who's in your group of your team, because one side doesn't fit all. And a lot of times as sales managers, unless we really can feed each person what they need, we just give a whole big blanket. Like, I had an insurance person who said her sales manager said she should see 50 people a week. And I said to her, okay. I said, do you know 50 people? And she was like, no, that's my problem. And I thought to myself, well, here's her sales manager saying she should see 50 people a week. That's 10 people a day, right? Times 5. So it's 50 people. Times 4 weeks, right? That's 200 people. She doesn't know 50. So how is she going to go out and find 10 people
200.
every single day? Not only find them, but she has to speak to 10 people every single day for 5 days. Right? So she has to go out. So she has to identify them. She has to go find them, and she has to put them on her calendar, and then she has to actually speak with them. That's a lot of time and effort. And she doesn't even know 50 people. And so for her, she's like, I don't even know how to do that. And then every week the salesperson would beat up on her, like, did you talk to your 50 people? Did you talk to your 50 people? Did you talk to your 50 people? And she's like, no. Because she didn't know how to find people, and she didn't know how to put them on her calendar, and she didn't know how to speak to them. And, 10 really what I said to her, do you need to really talk to 10 people for 5 days? Like, how many people do you need to talk to close a piece of business? And really, what is your sales manager asking you? Is it really because he wants you to fill the top of your pipeline because you're not seeing enough people? Or is it because he really wants you to close more business because you're not seeing enough people? And where did he get the number
Mm.
50 from? Was it because that's what he did?
You
Or did he just make that up? Caveman
you are
brain,
getting to what I was thinking.
right?
Because this is the thing. Like, if the leader is bad at this, the leader has problems, something that they got from like the 80s or something that's passed on for the past 15 years, and they feel this is what I need to push, it becomes this like generational problem, so to speak, in an organization. And it's the same thing we see in families as well.
Yeah.
So we got to fix the sales leaders and the organization leadership with their caveman brain problems to help the people in their stalls.
Yep, and we do
Mm.
that actually. We work with senior leadership or management to fix that, because I really wanted to call up her manager and say, "Hey, like, help me understand what is it that you're looking for?" And this is what she would report. And then the sales manager says, like, "Why is this person not meeting the results I'm looking for?" Well, they're just blanking all the information, and then that person's a terrible person and they're not doing the work that they're supposed to be doing, and the next you know, we're firing the person because we can't get what they need.
Yeah. Oh, the struggle is real.
It is, the struggle is real. Yeah, that's why I said you need to know who's in your stable. I don't hate to call it a stable, but in terms of your
Sure.
team. And you got to really think about what are you communicating to that team to get them to be able to bring in the results you're looking for. We actually don't call them goals in my company. We call them results. We call
Mm.
them outcomes. We call them achievements. And as a sales manager,
Why not?
oh, because goals don't work. Results do. Our brains don't think about goals. Our brains think about results. Our brain thinks about achievements. It's not my goal today to eat. It is my result that I need to kill something so that I survive.
Got you.
Right? So when you start speaking in outcomes and achievements and results, our result by the end of the week is that we're going to call 5 people. Okay. Whereas my goal is to call 5 people. Okay. And there's actually a difference the way your brain processes
I
that.
just saw that.
Yeah.
Because in the conceptually gold is not, it's not real.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be accomplished because it's only a goal. I would like it to be. The result that I'm achieving by the end of the week is now is go back to the affirmation. It is speaking it is into existence, so to speak, or almost like it's something that is going to happen. It's a guarantee in a sense.
Yeah. You got it, Donald. You got it so much. I wish everybody else would get it that way too. I
I
do.
love it.
I wish it was running. I wish everyone would, because that's exactly it. People fight me like goals are really important. I'm like, no, results are. And what result do you want? And how are
Yeah.
you managing that? What's the metric around it? And as sales managers, we think, well, I'm holding everyone accountable. And I think, really? And what do we do? And here's the challenge also. What do we do when they don't make it? What's the consequence? Right? What's
Yeah.
the benefit? And most people really work more on consequences than they do on benefits. But as people, we really don't like giving a lot of consequences. So
Yeah.
that's also challenging, because how do you stay motivated and keep people motivated? But at the same time, if you don't do what you need to do, how do I help you get to that place?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on consequences. Something I learned hard as a leader in our organization, where I had people who, and when I in an exit interview, one of them guys shared with me, is that basically he didn't say it in this words, kind of said you're too nice, and I took advantage of opportunities for that because we didn't have the consequences. We kind of talked about this stuff, but we didn't necessarily what were the consequences to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Uh,
And what's
mm,
great about consequences and what we say to our sales managers is ask the salesperson. Ask them what the
yeah,
consequence is. Ask them what they should be doing about it. What happens when you don't meet your result in 4 weeks? And we also have leaders who protect people. Like, we were working with a financial advising firm, and one person hadn't made their numbers in a year. And I was like, well, what are we going to do about that? I said that to the president. I'm like, what do you want to do about that? And he was like, no, we'll just leave him alone. Okay. You don't think everybody
angle
else
work.
doesn't know on your team that that person hasn't brought any business for a year? Like, that's stuff that you got
Yeah,
to, as a manager, you got to be able to know, how do you motivate everyone to do what you need to do? So,
love it. Dr. Gene, I'm taking up all your time here. This was so good. If there's one major takeaway you want folks to leave this interview with, What's that one major piece of insight?
To know that almost everything that's happening in your life that isn't happening the way you want to comes down to your caveman brain. And when you realize
Mm,
that and that you start to fix that, everything else falls back into place.
love it. If folks are listening to this, want to get connected to you, what's the best place for them to go about doing so? Is that LinkedIn, Instagram, all
Or
of the above?
they can actually go to to our website, which is super easy. It's cavemanbrain.com. And we have all of our little
Okay.
chiclets on there. In terms of LinkedIn and Instagram and all that other stuff. But just go to cavemanbrain.com. We have downloads that we give stuff that away for free that we use in our program that if people want to do it themselves. There's training if they want to look at training. If they want to sign up for one of our courses, they can do that too. But cavemanbrain.com, everything goes back to Caveman Brain. So, and like Gene at Caveman Brain, that's ask a question. I'm happy to answer it. Our mission in life is
Eh,
to leave you better than we found you. And we want to do that. So thank you.
I think you left all of us better today.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for having me.
Anytime, Dr. Jean. Thank you. That was Dr. Jean Oursler, and I highly recommend you go back and connect with her. We have her information down in the show notes. You can find her on LinkedIn and go to her website. Check out some of the things that she's producing and sharing. She has a lot of great information. Take advantage of the opportunities and the gifts and so forth that she offers. I promise you it's going to be worth it. For me, I really feel in so many ways that, go back to that discovery that we made there during the episode with me. I mean, like, when you think about it, like, we tend to have issues that hold us back, and it's not like they're just big, grandiose things. They're just small things that are inhibitors that we have, whether it's a past trauma, a past memory, a past experience, and we could get past those. If we can get past them, think about it, like the things that you can accomplish could be significant. So I want you to take advantage of this episode. I want you to apply this stuff. Go back and listen to it again, put it on a rerun, and check it out. I promise you it will help you make a big difference in your sales performance, in your prospecting, and help you to build better pipeline. Our goal of this podcast is simple. We want to help you to do two things: build pipe and convert a higher percentage of the pipe. I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to be able to, I want you to connect with me. Feel free to do so on LinkedIn. Take advantage of our sponsors. They're giving you amazing offers. Most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.